Hi, I'm Gareth Green, and in this video we're going to be thinking about a piece of music by Grieg, Norway's most celebrated composer. It's his wedding day at Troldhaugen, and this is a piece that he wrote in 1896 to kind of remember his own silver wedding anniversary. So it's a very joyous piece, and just to give us the flavour of this well-known piece from his lyric pieces, Opus 65 No. 6, this is what the opening sounds like. So it's a very kind of joyous start, isn't it? And you'll notice it's quite interesting how it just starts with these open fifths. So we're in the key of D major, and any good harmony book will tell you make sure you always have the third of the chord in. Well, Grieg isn't too worried about that because he just starts with a D and an a tonic and a dominant, and he kind of sets up this backdrop of just repeating this tonic dominant thing, but alternating between the huns and having this kind of insistent rhythm. Ba-ba-bum, 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 ba-ba-bum. And then you'll hear how that rhythm carries on. So we have this sort of backdrop. And every now and again it slightly changes. So in the next bar we get, and then we get. So every now and again you get that slightly more pointed rhythm, and then he comes back. And then the pointed rhythm, and then straight, and then the pointed rhythm again. So this is a kind of rhythmic backdrop to the whole thing. And then he paints this kind of light-hearted, joyous, celebratory melody across the top. And I love the way that we start at the end of this second bar after this short introduction with this a fast triplet, this semi-quaver or 16th note triplet. Hear that? It's great because he could have just started, but having that little anacrusic start to the melody with a triplet gives it a real kind of life, doesn't it? Harmonically, what's he up to? Well, at the beginning, it's just this tonic chord of D major, isn't it? And then when the melody comes in, we finally get that third that we were talking about being missing in the first two bars. And actually, that's the first time that it really confirms that this is in D major. Because when you think about it, if you haven't got the third, it could be in D minor. If we're just hearing these open fifths, he could have written it in D minor. Actually, it doesn't work in D minor very well, does it really? But if it's a celebration of the wedding anniversary, well, obviously he's in a major key. But he reserves that kind of major start until the melody comes in. So we don't know we're in D major until the start of bar 3. And then when you look at bar 3, you can see that the melody is full of kind of light-hearted, celebratory spirit, bouncing up a D major arpeggio. And then there's this little emphasis here, an accented passing note or passing tone. You see where it's accent, it's coming on the beat there. And then all the other notes belong to a D major chord. So it's only the E that doesn't. And because the E is the note that doesn't, it attracts that accentuation, doesn't it? So you can hear that. And then having had a very simple harmonic start, you know, the whole of this first line is a tonic chord. Nothing else is happening. And then we have this rather intriguing development in the harmony because we get this chord. And you're left thinking, why is that chord there really? Because what is it? It's a D major chord with an added 6 in it. And if you live in the UK, as I do, this is a sound you hear on railway stations. Now, this is a really kind of sad musical thought, isn't it? But on our station platforms, you have announcements that go like this. The train on platform 2 will be delayed for a further 40 minutes. So that's how they announce it, with that added 6 triad there, added 6 chord. Anyway, that's nothing to do with Grieg, who probably didn't use the UK railway system, much to his benefit, I'm sure. Anyway, so there we've got this D major added 6 chord. And you're thinking, well, why have a D major added 6? Well, actually, it's taking us to a new key. So having had this tonic chord sort of being rather static in D major, he adds the 6 to it, and this then becomes a 2-7 chord in first inversion in the key of A. So it's a rather neat transition, isn't it, from the home key of D. Just by adding that 6 to the tonic chord, it becomes a pivot chord, which is the 2-7-B in A major. Now, why am I saying that? Because when we go on, you'll notice that we have a G sharp introduced at the end of the bar, and then we go on to this chord here. Now, what's this chord? It's a B minor 7. So there we are. It's the 2-7 again in A, but in root position. And then there's that B minor chord again with a reminder of the G sharp as a passing note. And then an accented passing note there, or an extension of the chord, and then we finally get to a perfect cadence, but in A major. It's rather beautifully done, isn't it? How these notes that are added into that, that added note with the tonic chord takes us into the dominant key, and we feel another bit of optimistic lift by going from the tonic key into the dominant key. Okay, well, he's soon on the move again, because now the melody kind of develops this triplet and acoustic thing that we talked about before. And then when you look at the melodic design of this bar, you can see it's very similar to that bar. We're bouncing up a G major chord, accented passing note, and then all the other notes belong to a G major chord. Why are we hearing a G major chord? Because didn't we just say we modulated into the key of A? We arrived in the key of A and then G major. Well, because we're going back to D major. So the tonic chord of A major is obviously the tonic chord of A major, but it's also the dominant chord of D major. And then we come back to the subdominant chord of D major, which is rather beautifully organised after the A major, because the G naturals are not quite what we're expecting. But it all works because the A major chord at the end of that second line is our pivot, bringing us back to D major. But it's a rather nice effect after A major, isn't it? To go to G major on our way back to D, and then we get this lovely extended chord. Now, what is this chord? We're in D major. It's basically an E minor chord extended. So this is the chord that we're looking at, is this one. We've got an E minor chord, E, G, B. That's chord 2 in the key of D. Add a D, so it becomes a 2-7. But then add an F sharp, it becomes a 2-9. So lovely warm sound of that 2-9, isn't it? And then he loves these accented dissonances. And then we've got a cadence in D major. And this cadence kind of reflects the previous one. It's sort of this material that was in A major then happens here in D major. So the same thing's happening there. And you might notice as well, by the way, as we come into these two cadences, we've got another little added dissonance with that D there and the G here. So kind of 4-3 suspension. It's prepared on the previous chord. It's sounded as a dissonance there and it resolves here. Same thing here. It's prepared here, sounded as a dissonance, and then it resolves. So instead of it just going straight to a D major chord when we get down here, which would be this D major chord, that added suspension just gives another bit of colour. Hear that? And then what does he do? Well, kind of runs around the same material again. But interestingly, if you look at this next bit, there's the same as the opening introductory thing, but relocated an octave higher and with a slightly different sound with the una corda, the left-hand pedal of the piano. So slightly kind of brighter, more open sound up here, and then everything an octave higher. And you can hear this kind of real kind of celebratory thing coming through. Even in the rhythm, there's the light-hearted thing of the triplet, ba-da-la-dum, and then all this yum, bum, ba-bam kind of dotted rhythms. It's just they're not dotted because instead of this being a dotted note here, you know, he's replaced the dot with a little rest. So it's a kind of articulation, dum, ba-dum, dum, ba-bum. Lovely little use of silence, making it a very distinctive rhythmic figure that, you know, it comes up all over the place, doesn't it, in this first section. So you can see how often he's using that. So it's a very well integrated opening idea, isn't it? He's clear about having this introductory thing with the open fifths. We've got this lovely, distinctive, characterful melodic line that's celebratory with the rhythm and dancing up and down the arpeggios and making some use of accented dissonance to give it character. But we've got this driving rhythmic scheme going through the whole thing as well. And then some lovely twists and turns with the harmony. So it's clever stuff, isn't it? And this really forms the basis of the first section of the piece. And it kind of goes on in a similar way. I mean, we get contrasting ideas. Like when we get down to this point, you see the double bar line ending the first section, and then he uses some of the same ideas, but introduces some new stuff. So you see how he does that rhythm there again, the open fifths and the yum, bum, bum, bum. And then this kind of slightly new thing in the right hand. But the semi-quaver, being quite joyous. And then beginning of the next line, you notice that triplet thing is back with us again. And then we get this lovely, gorgeous moment of harmonic colour, which is absolutely something to be lapped up to the full. We've been in A major and then hear this chord. Isn't that to die for? This A flat augmented chord. What's that doing there? We've been in A major, A flat augmented. And then I love the way he uses that as a kind of chromatic chord to take us into C. Now that's a real magical moment, isn't it? It's so good. Let's hear it again. When you hear that A major, you have no idea this is coming. And then cadence in C. And then having done that, he says, let's have a moment of exuberance in C. And so here we use this previous material in A, but now in the key of C. Sorry. Oh, and then he's at it again. Do you notice this bottom line? We're going to get that lovely juicy chord again. I just think that's a gorgeous touch. And then he uses that to take us into E flat major. Isn't that a great way of going to a key that you're not expecting to go to? We were in C major. We then introduced this gorgeous chord, the augmented E flat chord, and then takes us into E flat major, and then 5, 7, 1, and he's using the same ideas as he did before. So lovely harmonic colour comes in on that page. Then we have this moment where it all gets rather fast and furious. So it kind of builds up, and that all gets quite exciting. So building up to a sense of climax. And then we get these moments that are almost like kind of, Tchaikovsky or something by the time we come to the end of all that. And he does this big fat chord stuff. And then G flat, a dominant seventh of D flat, and then F, but listen to that C flat in that chord, and then E, and then a dominant seventh in D, and then triple F on the, and then we get back into all that stuff again, but with this kind of rolling left hand and syncopated left hand rhythm as well. It's lifting the exuberance of the piece even more. Now, it could just be that he's going to blast on like this for the rest of the piece, but then when you go over the next page, we have this rather beautiful melody where he's suddenly being more reflective, maybe more intimate in terms of what he might want to say to his wife. So, poco tranquillo, so it's kind of slower, cantando. Kind of gorgeous stuff, isn't it? And can you almost hear the conversation going on between him and his wife? And it's as if they're at one, isn't it? They're singing the same melody as each other, but they're just passing it back and forth, just kind of conversing through this whole thing. And maybe we've got a sense of wedding bells kind of tolling in the background here. This kind of tonic and dominant pedal point thing. And you hear the warmth of the chord as well. G major chord there. Then it's a G major seventh, then it's a 5/7 over the tonic pedal, and then that gorgeous chord 2 imposed on the tonic dominant pedal, and then we're off to the key of D, the dominant chord, and then a moment of exertion, and then isn't that a gorgeous chord there? That 4/7 chord in G. And the conversation continues. And then a lovely kind of cadence with a 4/3 then. And then Grieg's ability just to completely shift the harmonic colour. We end up on a G major chord, and then we have a B major chord. Woo! How did we get there? Well, there's the G major chord, and this B in the G major chord becomes a pivot note because B is also the root of a B major chord, so you can go straight to a B major chord. Even though G major, the key we're in at this point, has got 1 sharp, B major's got 5 sharp, so it's a huge leap, isn't it? But just listen to that gorgeous moment again. Here's the cadence in G at the end of the 3rd line. Pivot chord to pivot note to B. Listen to the intimacy of that conversation. And then kind of what's going on here? A dominant 7th in the key of C sharp, C sharp major. All right. And then it's all chromatic, and he comes back to B major again. And then he does the same trick the other way. He says, let's use the B from the B major chord as a pivot note to a G major chord. And the conversation with the 7th chords again, very intimate, isn't it? And so it goes on. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous writing, isn't it? Terrific. And then, of course, you come down to the end of that section, and we go back and we rerun the first section again with all the same kind of material that we had before. But it's a beautiful piece. I mean, some scholars say, well, maybe it's not Grieg's finest work. I just think it's just a beautiful celebration and so fitting for their 25th anniversary. But kind of how does he achieve the character of that? What are some of the clever things that are going on in the music that just give us a bit of an insight into Grieg style. So if you don't know that piece, have a listen to it. It's from the Opus 65 lyric pieces. They're all worth listening to. And this one, as I say, is number 6 from the collection. And if you're a pianist, you may well have learnt this piece at some point, in which case it's worth a revisit. If you've never played it, you might quite enjoy getting hold of it. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, you might like to go to our website, www.mmcourses.co.uk. And if you click on courses on the homepage, it will take you straight to the many online courses we have on offer that are designed to empower the all-round musician. So you may have great musical skills, and you may just be one of those many people saying to me, trouble is, I never really kind of did my theory properly, or I could do with a kind of refresher on all that stuff, or I really need to get my oral skills a bit better, or I'd love to be able to write music more successfully and get my harmony sorted out, or my orchestration, or my counterpoint, or I need to really get a firmer grip on my analytical skills. Whatever it is you're looking for, we've got a selection of courses that would really help you. So you might want to have a look and see what's there. While you're on the home page, you might also click on Maestros, and that will give you access to our international community of musicians. Very exciting group this. There are 3 levels, nothing to do with ability at all, so anybody can come on to any level at any background ability. Level 1 is a bit of fun, you get emojis and other excitements, and it's a kind of support level. And then when you move on to level 2, there are further pluses for you, and including access to a monthly live stream where I can go into much more detail than I've had the time to do on this video, looking at the work of a composer, looking at a particular piece, examining what's going on, and really give you a solid hour of input. And also we take requests for topics from our members, we answer members' questions, so anything you want to know about music, that's your opportunity to ask it and to learn and expand your knowledge and experience of music. And then the level 3 group then has its own separate live stream at which we invite members to submit their own work. So it could be a composition, a piece of harmony, an arrangement, whatever you want to submit, and or a recorded performance, for example. And I'll give you one-to-one evaluative feedback on that. And we share all these things in the live streams with each other, which is a great way for everybody to gain ideas from each other and to learn from each other, to support each other. And a live chat runs through the whole thing, so you can ask questions as we go, make comments, whatever. And the people who have become members of that have found it a really supportive group to be a part of, and some lovely friendships are forming across the world. Lots of people saying it's really useful. Lots of people saying, you know, I've been ploughing my own little lone journey, and now I realise there are other people celebrating the same successes and struggling with the same things. And that's been such a helpful connection. So if that's for you, there it is. Enjoy.